Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing another book review. If you saw my vlog from last week, you would know that I actually read The Crash last week by Freida McFadden. I read it through audiobook while I was at work. It took me about 2 days to finish at work. And I want to talk about it because I have some feelings. Quick disclaimer, probably should put this here. Spoiler alert is in effect. I say it all the time. It's like I need to kind of explain what happens in order to explain my grievances. I say this with a lot of my reviews and then I completely redo it. This one I do actually have to spoil it quite a bit to get to my grievances. So I'm just going to start with kind of like a synopsis. So spoiler warning is in effect. Second, this was my first read that was a Freida McFadden book. And after reading several Goodreads reviews that said this is probably not the best book if you've never read Freida McFadden before, all I can say to that is oops. So that was probably a bit of a mistake to read this book first when I'd never read her books before. So just also keep that in mind. And last thing, I did not know this was considered what is called a popcorn thriller. I wasn't really sure what that was. Apparently it's just a quick, easy thriller read. So basically it's not that deep, it's just supposed to be fun, and it explores some topics that don't feel fun. So I'm going to start with a small synopsis. I will keep this brief for anyone who has read the book. If you haven't read the book, I would either skip forward or just not watch this video because I'm going to be spoiling quite a bit simply in my review. So let's get started. The Crash is a thriller by Freida McFadden. It is about a character named Tegan who is 8 months pregnant, and she is impregnated by a very rich, important person. And she doesn't remember anything about the night. She's been spending a lot of time with his lawyer Jackson and is falling for him. She's basically about to get a settlement, like with a lot of money to take care of the baby if she keeps herself quiet. The problem is when she actually sees this guy again, Simon, she suddenly remembers the encounter and that she was SA'd, basically. This was actually an interesting thing because honestly, that is kind of a sign of PTSD. Like, you don't remember the trauma until it comes back to you in a flash. Trust me, been there, it's not fun. And so it did kind of make sense for the story why she would suddenly remember. So she declines the deal because she refuses to stay silent about a guy who did this to her. And her brother invites her to stay with him. And so instead of driving to her brother's when she should have, she leaves. She leaves after a shift at her job. And so she's driving straight to a blizzard and she crashes. And, well, she crashes. It's called The Crash. I think she ran into I don't remember if she ran into a tree or a pole. I don't remember specifically, but she ran into something. So now she's stuck. And she thinks she's going to freeze to death. And then a truck drives by and this guy, big dude with a beard named Hank, comes and basically saves her from the car, but she has severely injured her ankle and she does not trust Hank pretty much off the bat. He takes her to his house because he can't get to the hospital in the storm. The electricity's out and the phones are out. So they take her down to their basement, which is where his wife Polly is a nurse and took care of her mom down in the basement during her last days. And Tegan is sent here to stay, but her ankle is extremely damaged and she can't take off her boot because it hurts so bad. And again, she's still 8 months pregnant at this time. Also to note, she has named her child temporarily Little Tuna because this child has given her, her pregnancy has given her cravings for tuna, which isn't actually good during a pregnancy because of the mercury content, but in small doses, her doctor said it's fine. So she is in this basement with her very pregnant self, and she occasionally hears her daughter talking to her in utero. It's not really explained, and we don't know if it's really like something in her head or if she really feels this connection with her child. It's not really explained. The POV suddenly switches to Polly, and this is like part 2 of the book at this point. So the point of view switches to Polly, which is Hank's wife. And we kind of get her motivation for keeping Tegan in the house, which is that she has suffered with severe infertility issues for like 8 years, and she cannot have a baby because of a psychotic break she had. She can't adopt. So she's desperate for a child and is for some reason convinced that she can keep Tegan in the basement until she has given birth to the child, and she can just take Tegan's, because she is convinced that Tegan doesn't actually want the child because she's only like 23. I should mention at this point, she basically thinks that Tegan isn't taking care of the baby at all because her brother left a flask at her house and she was taking that flask back to him, so it was in her purse. So in the crash, it spilled. So Polly immediately just assumes that she's been drinking throughout this entire pregnancy. So basically this entire middle section of the book is constant POV switches now between Polly and Tegan. Polly also is taking care of a young girl who lives next door and is horribly abused by her dad. So basically this entire middle part is basically Tegan constantly trying different things to escape this basement because they refuse to call the hospital. Tegan has no idea what's going on. She's still got a very hurt ankle, which we hear about all the time. And Polly is trying to convince Hank that Tegan wants to stay. Hank's not buying it. Tegan, like I said, is very untrustworthy of Hank. And is very untrustworthy of Hank, but Hank's actually not like the villain here. It's Polly keeping her in the basement. So they go back and forth like this for about 4 days. And eventually, to get Hank to cooperate with her, Polly basically threatens to delete herself, which is so messed up and so emotional manipulation. So there's a lot going on. Eventually, Polly makes an errand. I think she was going to the pharmacy because Tegan has now got an infection in her ankle so bad she needs antibiotics. And while Polly is at the drugstore, Hank finally takes Tegan to the hospital. And at this point, she's been there for 4 days. Also at this point, Polly has given Tegan a concoction that is apparently proven to work. I don't remember what they called it, to basically induce labor. So that's already happening too. So Polly comes back, confronts Hank, and then eventually leaves disguised as a nurse to basically go delete Tegan, who I don't believe has given birth at that point. No, she still hasn't given birth, but her brother and Jackson have come to visit her. She doesn't trust Jackson because he didn't believe her initially when she was telling him about Simon, and her brother seems weirdly familiar with him. And it turns out Polly comes in disguised as a nurse just as Tegan's brother is about to shoot a lethal dose of morphine into her IV while she sleeps. I'll get to that. So Polly basically saves Tegan's life by reporting him to security. In the epilogue, Tegan is with Jackson, even though he didn't believe her initially, with her daughter Tia, and Hank and Polly end up fostering and possibly adopting Sadie, the little girl from next door, after her father dies. And in the epilogue, we find out that Hank murdered him. And happy ending for all, I guess. Couple things. I do not like the depiction of mental health in this book at all. If you are struggling with infertility, I would not recommend this book. Being in Polly's head is infuriating because it's just so frustrating. Obviously, she's lost it. She's going through some psychotic break. At the end of the book, she does mention seeing her therapist after all this occurs. But being in her head is very difficult. So just keep that in mind if you start to read this book and you're struggling with anything like that. This may not be the best option. The part I struggled with the most trying to get through this book was the dual POV between Polly and Tegan. It really ruined a lot of the suspense for me because you know Polly's motive the whole time. it's revealed super early. So it's like, it's just them going back and forth. And it becomes really frustrating because Tegan doesn't trust Hank at all, and she thinks Hank's an abusive husband, and it's all him who's convincing Polly to keep her because she saw a bruise that was from the next door neighbor on her wrist and immediately assumed it was her husband. But you see Hank trying to get Tegan out of the situation in Polly's point of view. So it really only makes you very frustrated. I feel like it frustrated me. I will give Tegan some credit. She did try whatever she could to protect herself and save her child in that predicament, and that's not easy. But it was kind of anticlimactic that Hank was the one to finally carry her up to the car and take her to the hospital. Tegan did not trust him until he dropped her off at the hospital, and she went, wait, he's the good guy? He has been the whole time, but what does she know? She's been in the basement. I don't really care for the twist that it was her brother who messed with her brakes, causing the accident, and wanted to kill her. Apparently, him and Simon were working together, like they were in some sort of company together. Something to do with his ski lodge and his ski instructing, which he had to do because he got into some sort of accident that he blamed Tegan for because he was going to see her when it happened. I don't like where this went. I don't like that it's just like you have this at the beginning and then you have it as, like, I don't like the bookend style of that. I really think it would have benefited this book personally. My personal opinion is if this book would have benefited greatly by being cut down by about 30% and making it entirely in Tegan's perspective in that basement and having that twist with Polly be the main twist. I do think it would have benefited the book greatly. It doesn't mean it would be better written, but I think it would have benefited the book, the story at least, it would have benefited. I did read in a lot of Goodreads reviews that Freida McFadden's writing style is very binge-worthy. I personally did not agree with that, but I was also listening to the audiobook, which is about 9 hours. And even on 1.25 speed, I know that's not very fast, but if I go much faster, I can't understand what's going on. It was still the longest 9 hours I think I've ever felt reading a book. It was so long to me. I think it just went on for way too long, which is why I think it could have been cut down and been in completely Tegan's perspective. And I think that plot twist would have been so much more effective than going to the dual POV to the point where it's kind of frustrating. I gave the book 1 star. I know that's awful, but I give her complete credit. I was invested in, like, the only reason I kept reading, even though I was infuriated by the end, was to see how Tegan got out of that situation. And then it was completely anticlimactic. But she did keep me gripped in that sense. But trying to get through to that point was a bit of a slog for me personally. I did give this book a 1 star, not my favorite. Honestly, my final thoughts with that are, it's not my favorite. It was not a fun read for me. Being in Polly's perspective just was infuriating after a while, and the dueling POV was just really frustrating after a while. I just did not have fun with this book at all. I think it dealt with some heavy topics that don't need to be dealt with lightly, and it just wasn't done well. This was also coming off of the fact that I had just finished Endless Night by Agatha Christie and given it 5 stars, which is in a single POV, and which is new for Agatha Christie, and not new for Agatha Christie, different for Agatha Christie, and it was really well done. Like, the suspense was there, and then the twist, like, really was a gotcha. That one was a 5 star for me. So going from a 5 star Agatha Christie to a 1 star Freida McFadden was not a good experience for me. Overall, I think probably the best thing for me to do is maybe try one of her earlier releases to see, okay, maybe it was just that book and it was just a fluke, or maybe I just don't like this author, which is also a valid criticism, I think. Just not my thing. And honestly, popcorn thrillers may just not be my thing. I like thrillers that go deeper. I understand that the popcorn thriller is literally there to be easy to read and, you know, just a fun kind of thing to do, and that's fine. I do like my thrillers probably just a little bit darker and a little bit more, a little deeper, I guess is how I would put that. All in all, 1-star read. If you liked this book, please let me know what you liked about it. If you agree with me, just let me know in the comments below. Start the discussion, just keep it respectful. And I think that is it for this review. So that is The Crash by Freida McFadden. Read at your own risk. If you liked it, that is great. If you didn't like it and agree with me, that is also fine. Just, if you have anything to say in the comments, just make sure to keep it respectful to each other. And if you like stuff like this, please let me know, like and subscribe. And I think that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye.